Your people are thinking about joining this church. I think that's pretty good. The Federated Church in Sturbridge and Fiskdale. What kind of a church is that? How does it happen to be here? Just what kind of a church is it that you want to be joining? Well, to get at that, we really have to think back to the time when the first settlers came here. And when was that? 1729, a long time ago. And where did they come from? They came from Wakefield, Medfield, down the other side of Framingham. Maybe 15, 20 miles from the seacoast. And how did they get here? They pretty much walked. There were no roads in this area at that time. There were Indian trails and paths through the woods. You could walk, maybe lead a horse. But that was about it. When those early settlers got here, was there anybody here to greet them? Yeah, there were. Some Indians. Not very many. Most of them had driven out in the King Philip's Indian War back in the 1600s. But there was still just enough Indians around to make you very nervous. And was there anything else of note? Sure were. There were trees, huge trees, because this was the virgin forest, untouched, stretched for miles in every direction. A one-word description of it at that time, what was it? It was woods. And why would people who were living in a safe and settled area, like Medfield, want to walk out into the really deep woods and try to organize a brand new settlement where they might come under threat of an Indian attack? Why? Because of a land grant. What is that all about? If we lived here during that time period, we'd soon figure out that we are British subjects. We're living in a British colony, and we're ruled by an English king. The United States hadn't even been thought of at this time. And the king, for all practical purposes, he owned the colony. It's his. You could do anything you wanted. You could keep it, you could sell it, you could give it away. You know, we did all of those things. If you had done some great and noble deed, could you receive a royal land grant as a reward? Most certainly. If you had some money, could you approach the king and maybe swap that for a royal land grant? Oh, he loved those. But there was another one. A land grant by petition. How did that work? Well, what you did was ask the king for the use of some of his land. There are 42 of us, people just like you and I. We're living down in that Medfield area. And we get together with this thought in mind. What do you say? You want to take a shot at the land grant? Yeah, why not? What do we got to lose? We put our petition together. We edited it. And you know what happened? Nothing. We kept tearing down flatter than a pancake. Not just once. We refused a second time, then a third time. We started working at this in 1718. In 1729, 11 years later, we finally received approval for a land grant. How much later? Looks like about 15,000 acres. Hey, that sounds really good. Where is it? You know, the woods, the deep woods, the Indians way out there. That's us. That's not so good. But just remember this. How much are we going to have to pay for this land grant? How much? Nothing. It's free. Except for this. There are certain things we've got to do to confirm our land grant. The king can give it, yeah, but he can also take it away. So what is it we got to do to keep the land? First off, we've got to settle 50 families on the land. Then each one of those families has got to build a house. And that house can be no smaller than 18 feet square, about the size of this room. No little houses. Then each family has got to clear at least 7 acres of land, make it suitable for cropland, for pasture land. And that is a mandatory job. The steps are huge. Anything else? Yep. We've got to settle an Orthodox minister. Okay, that means we're going to have to have a church. Now, this is no ordinary old church. We've got to settle an Orthodox minister. What does that mean? Well, for that, we have to think back to the very founding of the colony. And you remember all about that. The Mayflower, Plymouth Rock, the Pilgrims. What were those pilgrims? They were congregationalists. And seeing they got here first, they made dead certain that the state religion for the Massachusetts Bay Colony, guess what it was? Congregational. So we better be pretty sure that our Orthodox minister ends up sitting inside a congregational church. Anything else? That's right. We got to give the minister of that church, whoever that turns out to be, a 50th share of our enterprise. He used to be a so-called proprietor, an owner. And what does that 50th share amount to? You know, something that might approach 500 acres of land. You got here too late. 200 years ago, you could have been a land baron. Anything else? One more thing. We've got to accomplish all of the foregoing inside of 7 years. That charter was issued in 1729. And in 1736, in a newly constructed meeting house just across the street from where we're sitting, the first minister of the Congregational Church was ordained. And you know what? That's one of the reasons that you and I are here today, because of that Congregational Church. Well, another reason we're here today is because of the Baptist Church. Where did the Baptists come from? They came out of the Congregational Church in 1747. 15 members of the Congregational Church, including 2 deacons, decided they would cease fellowship with the Congregationalists with the intention of organizing a Baptist church. And when they did, all kinds of problems, unbelievable problems. Why? Because of this Orthodox business. See, in that time period, when you went to town meeting, you appropriated money for the minister's salary. This is town tax money, mind you. And for the minister's firewood. And for the church sexton. And for pair of maids for the meeting house. Of course, if a minister died, they had a special town meeting. Why? They got to appropriate money for his funeral expense. Every expense of the church was a town expense. There was one exception. The bread and wine for the communion table. That the tuition's paid for. But that was the only exception. And when these Baptists began thinking about organizing their church, they thought that through along this line. We're going to have our own minister. We'll take care of him. We aren't going to be using the meeting house. No, there really isn't any good reason why we should be supplying financial support to a church we aren't even going to go to. So you know what they did? We're going to pay this. They stopped paying their taxes. Well, you know, you can't do that. What do you think we ought to do? Rather than guessing, let me read to you what he told me to do. That way I won't make a mistake. So this is what those early settlers did. showing a large measure of Christian charity. They attempted to bring their brethren back into the fold and collect taxes as follows. The assessors took from Deacon Fisk 5 pewter plates, a cow, and from Jonathan Kenny a saddle and steed. From John Streeter a kettle and potters. From Mr. Blunt a trammel, shovel, tongs, and heifer. Kitchens were robbed of their shovels, trammels and andirons, larders of their pewterware, housewives of their spinning wheels, warming pots, tankards, and pot pots, the mechanic of his broadaxe, saw, and other tools, and the farmers of their cows, oxen, and smaller stock in great abundance. And to complete this scene of ecclesiastical greediness, from Deacon Newell, they took a flock of geese besides his cow and pewterware. That's what we did. But that isn't all. To further show their love and affection, the Baptist preacher from Brimfield, who caused this agitation in Sturbridge, was seized by the constable for preaching here, dragged out of town, and thrust into prison as a stroller and a vagabond. I like that, a stroller and a vagabond. I know what a vagabond is, I think. Footloose, carefree, a wanderer. Anybody know what a stroller is? I don't. But I'll tell you, if you're a stroller and a vagabond and a Baptist preacher, you can get yourself in terrible trouble. Absolutely. But that isn't all. Deacon Fisk and 4 other worthies were imprisoned in the Worcester jail. Now, Deacon Fisk, that has kind of a familiar ring. We live in Fiskdale, right? A lot of people live up on Fisk Hill. Deacon Fisk, that's the fellow. He's a deacon, yeah. Original settler, yeah. Proprietor, yeah. We're naming sections of the town for him. And where is he? We got him locked up in the cell right next door to the Baptist minister. Looks like we've got ourselves in a mess. And how was it resolved? What was the outcome? Did those 15 families leave that congregational church? They sure did. And did they organize that Baptist church? You can count on it. And did they ordain a minister? Yes, sir. And did they finally agree that they will provide some modest amount of support to the town church? What do you think? Yeah, large church. And one of the reasons we're here today is because of that Baptist church. Excuse me. Another reason we're here today is because of the Unitarian Church. And where did the Unitarians come from? For that one, we're going to change centuries. More than 100 years. When? 1864. Right smack in the middle of the Civil War. And where did those Unitarians come from? You guessed it. They came out of the Congregational Church. 40 families. And what is this one all about? If you read everything you can lay your hands on about that time period, you'll soon come away with the flavor that there's some kind of a problem relating to the congregational minister at that time. You talk about having a minister who left his flock sadly divided. They talk about turbulence within the church and turmoil. And the people who are leaving the church, what are they saying? Words along the line that they have a need for a kinder and a gentler message of God's truth. So what was the problem? I don't know. Tell me what I want to know. Now, was it some theological kind of dispute, or was it just a personality clash? They don't tell me. Let me tell you what I think. Now be careful. When some guy says, this is what I think, he doesn't know, he's guessing, and I am. But every time I think that through, I always come up with exactly the same conclusion. I think that congregational minister was a fire and brimstone preacher. I think he's preaching about the wrath of God and the fires of hell. And he sees a God defeated. I think the people who are leaving that church, they're looking for God's love. But what I think is not what's important, what happened? What was the outcome? Did those 40 families leave that church? Did they organize the Unitarian Church? And call a minister and build a church building and go along their merry way? They should. And one of the reasons we're here today is because of that Unitarian Church. And now I'm going to tell you that these three churches thought it'd be a wonderful idea if they in some fashion federated, they cooperated, had some kind of a joint worship kind of thing. And you were going to tell me that I must be stark raving mad out of my head. These churches hate each other with a passion. And why would they ever even think about cooperating? They wouldn't. That would be the last thing on their list, except for this. They pretty much have to. Not much choice. Why? Economic necessity. How could that be? You see, right up to and through the Civil War, the town of Sturbridge grew and it prospered. In 1860, there were 2,300 people living in this town. I think back 1729, maybe a handful of Indians. But following the Civil War, the town went into a slide, into a decline. What happened? The shoe shop shut down. That was pretty much a Civil War opportunity. And as a result, there were fewer employment opportunities. The farmers, they finally figured out that Sturbridge is a terrible place to farm, too many rocks. And they did just what Hollis really told them. Go west, young man. That's what a good farmland is. That's what they do. They abandoned the farms in the city. They just picked up and left. They were out in New York State, Pennsylvania, Ohio. And the railroad. The railroad was a major factor. The Grand Trunk Railroad. They're building it there. It's going to go right through this town. It's going to be the economic salvation of the town. You know what happened? In 1912, the Titanic went down. The railroad promoter went down with it. And the result, financing for that railroad collapsed. Construction ceased. The railroad was never completed. And Sturbridge got left out of the railroad. And the final crushing blow, that barren town of Southbridge, they're sitting down there, they got that big river. They got all that water power. They've got a railroad. They've got a textile complex. They've got that optical thing that looks like it might be a winner. And as a result, Southbridge has become the economic engine of this entire area. And the sad part of it is that Southbridge, more than half of it, used to belong to Sturbridge. It isn't fair. They took it away from us. As a result of that, these influences, what happened to the population of Sturbridge? 1860, 2,300 people. How many people in 1920? There were 1,600 people. A third of the people had gone left. And of those 1,600 that remained, do you think that any of them might possibly have been Roman Catholics? There just plain were not enough people in the town of Sturbridge to support 3 Protestant churches. Not even close to it. How do we know? Well, during that time period, the early 1920s, the Baptist church, they didn't even have a minister. They couldn't afford one. The Unitarian church, they didn't have a minister. They couldn't afford one. Now, the Congregational church had a minister. And he was leaving. And it looks like they wouldn't be able to afford a replacement. So in their wisdom, what did these 3 churches do? They did what every good church does when it has a problem. What did they do?
On the committee.
You may not have the church problem without a committee. And if you don't have a problem, appoint a committee and you go. Right? This committee was very good. It had membership from each of those 3 churches. And what was their challenge? Is there anything we might be able to do collectively that we cannot do individually? And the answer came back, yes, we think there is. We think that we could jointly share the cost of a minister. Now, this is no ordinary minister. This minister has got to be young, he's got to be agile, he's got to be fast on his feet. Because on Sunday morning, he's going to have to preach his sermon in 3 separate church buildings to 3 separate congregations. And there are going to be 3 church suppers and 3 Sundays. Hey, you know, he couldn't worship together. Look at our past history. But you know, if we don't do something, all 3 of us are likely to slide off the map, never to be heard from again. And besides, this is not permanent. Hopefully it's only temporary. And if we can once get straightened out, then maybe we'll all be able to get back to having our own minister. So in 1922, with the formation of the Federated Church of Sturbridge and Fiskdale, what was its object? The 3 separate, individual, autonomous churches to jointly share the cost of the minister, period. And how did it work out? Well, pretty good. Because not long after that federation had been formed, the Unitarians decided that they had enough money to pay for their share of the minister. That they could do. But they didn't have enough left over to do things like heat the church. So they decided it'd be best for them, just temporarily, mind you, that they would close the door of their church and recommend that their parishioners attend worship service at either the Baptist church or the congregation. Hey, it doesn't make all that much difference. But if you're paying for your share of the minister, you really ought to go and listen to what he has to say. So as a result of that, how many times did the minister have to preach his sermon on Sunday morning? We're coming. And how wonderful it was not. At church, we lost a great lady about 2 minutes ago. Lillian, you had to know, you had to love her. Lillian was a special kind of person. She was a Baptist. Lillian, she's the last lady in our congregation that still wore a hat to Sunday morning services. Wonderful. If I ever wanted to know anything about the Baptist church, talk with Lillian. She had a memory like an elephant. She never forgot. And Lillian Park told me that she could remember attending the last Sunday morning service that was held in the Fiskdale Baptist Church. She sang in the choir. And when was that service held? In 1942, after the formation of that federation. And the Sunday following that service, you know how many times the minister preached his sermon? He preached it once because we were all worshiping together. Amazing. Think about that. You can't hurry that. It takes a lot of getting used to. Think of all the forgiving and forgetting, because it's all within that framework. That you, yes you, your great-great-grandfather put my great-great-grandfather in the slammer. And I remember that. And so do you. And I got big problems in forgiving you. But you know, in 1942, we're finally doing it. We are all worshiping together. But we got a problem. What is that? People come to our church. They want to join our church. People just like you. We say, hey, that is really great. You want to join our church? Which church do you want to join? We don't call them churches anymore. We call them societies. But they are, in fact, separate, free, upstanding churches. Which one do you want to join? Most people pick the church. But our problem people came at us with a different kind of answer along this line. I don't have a denomination. You know, I don't think I really want one. I don't want to get wrapped up in that denominational stuff. Isn't there some way I could join the church? Well, currently, I'm sorry, there isn't. Probably best you went somewhere else. But how does this sound? Let's say we had another society, one that was non-denominational, one where you didn't have to put your hand up and say, I believe such and such. Would that meet your needs? Hey, that sounds pretty good. So in 1943, we had that non-denominational group, and we found out that it served another need. For those people who came, wanted to join people just like you. But some of these people had a strong denominational background, but not one of our main brands. Would it be possible for such a person to join that Federated society and in their heart still maintain their denominational tie? Not only could they, but we would give them every encouragement to do exactly that. So in 1943, we ended up with the organization of our church just as it is today, in which we have 4 societies, or 4 churches. You can call them anything you want. But what it is a collection of a lot of different kinds of people. These people come from different places. They have different backgrounds. They have different outlooks. And you know, these people do not even all think about their religion in exactly the same way. That's a fact. But they do come up with one simple thought. What do you say? Let us worship together. And we've been doing it ever since. And here we are in the year 2005. And that's 83 years now since that federation was formed. And I think there are a lot of people that would be surprised that this federation still stands. But is it the same federation of 83 years ago? No way. It has markedly changed. How do I know that? I mean, the best illustration I can think of is the church auction. Every year, second Saturday of August, we have the church auction. And that's a day of frantic activity. If you didn't organize, it would be chaos. How are you going to organize? We got the hot dogs here. We give that to the Congregationalists. We can forget that one. They'll take care of it. The Baptists, we'll put them on the craft table. table. The Unitarian this wrong. We'll have them do the lifting and the lugging for the auction, and the poor Federateds, we'll put them on cleaning up the common after it's all. And if you organize along that way, a day that could be chaos, you can turn into something that has some semblance of order. And is that the way we do it? Well, I work on the auction. Sure, I work with a group of people. One segment of it. But what's this denominational stuff? I work on the auction, and I have the faintest idea of the people I'm working with, what their denominations, whether they even have one. Why would I know? Why would I care? Because when we're working on the auction, we're all in it together. And that's the difference between now and 83 years ago. Because 83 years ago, I can assure you, we were not all in it together. We wanted to have separate Sunday morning service. We wanted to have separate church service. And if we had had an auction 83 years ago, there's absolutely no question we would have had separate auctions. 83 years ago, we wanted to be separate. Today, we're all in it together. Big difference. 83 years ago, people federated because they had to. Today, we remain federated because we want. Big difference. 83 years ago, people hoped that this federation would be temporary. You know, I'm beginning to believe after 83 years, it is no. What's the key? How did this transformation, this magnificent change, how did it happen? 3 seconds. We have learned to worship together. And we've been doing it long enough now, so we're really getting pretty good at it. For that, let's just get back to what we originally set out to do. Answer some questions. The Federated Church of Sturbridge Fiskdale. What kind of a church is that? How does it happen to be here? Just what kind of a church is it? The 3 people are thinking about joining. Well, you know what? If I had done my job, now you know. And one final thought. You're thinking about joining this church, and I hope you do. And if you do, I'd like to think that I could be one of the very first to be